In the previous videos, we added some buttons to the screen, and we also made the app print your name to the logs when it runs. We added some text fields as well, and we played around with some formatting. This is a great first step, but it doesn't make a very interesting app. So what we're going to do now is start to connect the actions you do on the app's interface to things appearing on the screen and in the logs. This is the foundation of an interactive app. So we're going to take this slowly, go piece by piece. By the end of it, you're going to do some coding which you're going to find quite interesting and a great milestone in your development. So here we are in XCode. There's nothing particularly interesting here. You might have an old file with some buttons or text fields. You can just go ahead and delete that, so you're starting a little bit fresh. So the first thing I want to do is add a button that when we click will print something to our logs rather than just printing to logs when we open the app. So the first thing to do, add a button. I'll give you a chance to pause the video and add your button. Okay, you should now have added a button right here. It might say something like click me or button, doesn't really matter. Now, if you added it the way I showed you before, which is view show library, that is totally legit and really good. Another way to do it is up here, little plus icon. I click that and the library appears. It's a bit of a shorter way, both ways work fine. So click on button, drag that onto the screen, put it in the middle, and I'm going to say click me. So that is our button. And if I was to run the simulator, nothing would really happen because it's just a button. We saw this before, that here's the build coming up right now. It loads, we'll see something and absolutely nothing. That's okay. Let's do some coding. First thing, we need to open up two windows so we can see our codes. I click on the little button here with a plus adder icon, add editor on the right. You see we've now got two editors. Both of them showing a user interface, doesn't really do any good doing that. So on the left-hand side, I'm going to click on View Controller. That brings up our code in the left, and on the right, we can see our app. Once again, we can change the view to a different device orientation, but it's fine how it is. I'm going to go and hide the debug area because we don't need it right now. So what we want to do is start doing something when we click the button. To get our button into the coding, we hold down the control button on our keyboard, drag click me over here and release. And we get an option coming up. So we've got a few different kinds of connection, but actually you've only got two. An outlet is we're going to display something. An action is you, the user, are doing something. We're going to need an action. Don't worry about the object, leave it as view controller. The name can be absolutely anything we like. Now I'm going to call it button clicked. Doesn't really matter. The type, it could be a UI button, but we're going to leave it as any for now. The event, now this is where you are doing something, you're interacting with the phone. The most common form of interaction is touch up inside, which is you press the button and you move your finger up and off the screen. If you've ever pressed the button, slid your finger off the button and then released and nothing happened, that's because you went to the outside of the area before releasing and the action was touch up inside. If you had selected touch up outside in the coding and then when you slide off the area and release, then an action would happen. But we're going for touch up inside, so when you tap that button, something magical happens. There's different arguments which we'll touch on later on, but for now, that's everything. So I'm going to click there, and we see that some code's been added. You could add the code manually, that would be completely fine, but frankly, this is easier. We'll see that two parentheses have appeared, so we can say when the function of this button happens, we will do something. So to make some space, you can have as much space as you like in apps, in coding, doesn't matter. Actually, some space really helps. So I'm going to then print to my logs that the button has been clicked. So I'm going to pause for a second, let you go and do that, and then continue. All right, let's hope you remembered how to do that. It's quite a straightforward command, but don't worry if you've forgotten. Coding is something you learn over time. So my command I want is print, open brackets, then I want to have quotation mark, and then say button clicked. There we are. So what happens when we simulate this? Well, click on play. Our simulator is now loading. We're going through to some pretty amazing things. Here we are, it's loading. And when I click button, the debug window opens up and we see button clicked appears there. Click a few more times, there we are. So now we're printing to log when we're doing something, we're interacting with the app. But this is quite a boring interaction, so we need to do something a little bit more interesting. Why don't we put a message at the bottom saying button clicked? Right, how do we do that? Well, we start by putting in a text field. It's the same way as you add the button. Click on the plus icon, choose a label, not text field. Drag over here and leave that as that. So if I just left it like that, nothing would happen, nothing would change. So how can I change the text? Well, I need to make this a item that I can modify. To do that, once again, control button, click and drag. I'll leave it right there. And I'm going to call this text field. Actually, no, I'm not. That would be very simple. I'm going to just call it label. Right. Click connect. Now, before I click connect, I'll just point out that we've got outlet and there's only really one option because it's a label you can only present. Then we've got the type, it can only be a label. And the storage, now weak and strong. You can go ahead and Google this if you like. Leave it at weak, just don't touch it and click connect. And you'll see that we've now got a variable called weak. That's fine, leave it as that. Bit of space. So what is that? Well, we've got a variable. It's something that can be changed. It's called label. And at the start is that. Right, let's do something. Well, what's the thing going to be? It's going to be label.text equals open bracket, quotation, and then we're going to call it button clicked. Actually, there's no mistake there. Don't worry. That is everything. I'm going to put a little exclamation mark at the end there. So when we click on the button, we will change this item, the label, we'll change its text to button clicked. Let's go ahead and see what that looks like when we press play in the simulator. It's loading up now. Now, that's interesting. You'll see what happened is the text changed from label to but. And again, we've got our log down the bottom there. So what's happened? Well, our label space is too small to display the actual text we've entered. So we go over here and we expand our label to the side, expand again, and open up our sidebar, make it center aligned, and that should be everything. We can go and hide that. We can go and simulate again. What's going to happen? Well, you might be able to guess this one. We click on click me, button clicked, hooray. But then there's a problem. When you load it up, it still says label, which is pretty weird to see in an app. So let's get rid of that. Go over to our interface, double click here, and we just delete that text. So it's invisible, it's a bit of a ghost label. Click simulate again. And here we go. Click, button clicked. Wow. We have now done something. We've created interactivity in our app. And that is really interesting. That's really good. But it's not that great because who wants to click a button and just see button clicked? Not that many people. So why don't we get some user input where you enter something and then that text you enter appears on the screen. Let's go for it. Here we are in our interface again. I'm just going to select these two items, hold down the shift, move them down, and add a text field. I told you earlier I was getting ahead of myself. My brain's working a little bit too fast today. So here's our text field. Drag that in. Doesn't matter where it goes. Again, I'm going to pull it right across to avoid any problems. And what am I entering here? I'm entering my name. So enter your name is the placeholder. And we can leave everything pretty standard. So we could say the content type is a name. We are going to capitalize the words. We are not going to do spelling correction because it's far too difficult to spell correct people's name. Leave smart dashes, leave inserts, leave quotes, leave spell checking. Keyboard type, I'm going to leave it as the default one. We could change it around there, but hey, let's just leave it. And keyboard look, we could go for dark light, but default is quite good. So we've now got a text field where people can enter their name. If I was to simulate that, we'll quite happily see this pop up on our screen. Text field, I can click in there. Now, if I had my sort of interface a bit more interesting, then a bit would pop up, but it's right. So Chris Parker. Click me, button clicked. So there's no connection there right now. It's just showing some code. That is fine. So let's now change it so the label displays our name. How do we do that? Well, we need to create another outlet variable. Bit of space around here. Click on the text field, control and drag into our coding. What we're going to call it? We're going to call it text field. Again, I told you I was getting a bit ahead of myself before. So why did I just call this lowercase then uppercase with the two words? The reason is that if you type everything at lowercase like this, it will work fine because the first letter is lowercase and Swift likes that. But try and read this as a human. It's pretty difficult. So making that first letter of the second word into uppercase makes it easy to read. This is called camel case. And you'll see it a lot on this course. You'll see it a lot in coding. It's just a great thing. We'll leave everything else how it is with UI field and weak and click connect. So here we have our variable. So we can now do things that is good. Now, how do we do this? Well, we could say, rather than button clicked, we could just say text field dot text. And that's what it's doing is it can pull through text from your text field, whatever you enter. But there's a problem. What if we click on the button and we had not yet entered any text? There'd be a problem. It just wouldn't work. So we need to fix that. And this is really simple. It's using a function called if_let. Let's put this in and I'll explain as we go. So quite simply type if_let and then we give it a name. This name can be anything, but I'm going to call it name. And then equals text field dot text and then our brackets. What does this do? Well, we're saying that if there's no problem with this text, if there's actually something in there, then we can run our code. And if there's nothing in there, which means we can't work on it, then it doesn't really work. So we can now go ahead and do stuff. Let's delete this. We'll see a little warning here that we got the value name was defined but never used. Pull this over here. Now that just means that we've not done any coding with this. It's a bit of junk coding. That's fine. We're going to be putting this in here. So now we're inside our parentheses and say label.text, which is what we had before. It's just the same as up there. Equals name. Okay. If we let the text field, then we can have label.text equals our name. And we've got our label text up there. We've got our text field here. We see they're being highlighted as we go. Let's press play and see what this does. Our app's now loaded. I'm going to click me. You'll see the button clicked, but nothing else happens. But I'm now going to call myself Chris, click me, and there we are. And again, buttons clicked appeared in the logs. So you can see how that let if function is doing its job. So that is interesting. I'm not sure why I'd want to type my name and then have my name appear. It's kind of a bit boring. So let's make that a bit more interesting over here. Rather than just having name, we can say hello name. So how do we do that? Well, quite simple. We have our open speech marks, hello, and then close speech marks, then plus. So we have one bit of text plus that bit which we pull out from there. Okay, let's run that and see what happens. You might be able to spot this one coming up. Well, when we say click me, hello appears but no name. That's because we haven't got rid of anything saying hello, but that's all right. So Chris, click me, hello Chris, as one word, which means we need to put our spaces in. So over here, put a space after name. Let's run this again. App loads up. Enter my name, Chris, click me, hello Chris. That is interactivity. We're starting to build parts of the app where you are doing something and it is now putting out an output. So now it's over to you. We've got a task for you to do to test how much you've learned and remembered. Remember, you can always go back, watch what I've shown you, look at the example code on the screen, which is a few frames back, to help you. Here's your task. I want you to make a brand new project, so fresh code. Again, add a text field, add a button, add a label, just as we've done. But this time, we're going to be talking about ages rather than names. So you want people to put in their age, and then you want the text, the bottom, to say, you are so many years old. Let's go and do that. I'm going to get you to pause the video, then we carry on. How was that? I hope you did very well and you are feeling confident in your coding. If not, don't worry, I'm going to go through it with you step by step. So with the next code, File, New. We go down and we see Project. We are going to choose an app because we're in iOS and we like apps. That's what we're doing here. Project name, age, doesn't really matter. Everything else can just stay the same. And click Next. Where we're going to save it to, let's save it to our desktop. That is completely fine. And it's created our file as the beach ball spins along. Just to save space, I'm going to just close down our previous bit of coding. Let's go to main storyboard and check. We're working on iPhone 11. That's fine. We're just going to have to make sure that we simulate in iPhone 11 when we get around to doing that. Going to get rid of my sidebar so we've got more space. Just open up full screen. Insert a text field. Insert a button. And then I'm going to insert a label. Just dragging along. Let's make these the right size. So all the way to the left, all the way to the right. The button going to go in the center, and the label is going to go in the center as well. I'm going to open up the sidebar, start putting some defaults. This is just design and user interface. So placeholder text, how old are you? You'll notice that I put capital letters at the first of each word. That's because it's easier to read sentences that have short, and have the first letter capitalized. So that's really good and easy to do. Don't worry about the rest of this stuff, but if you chose the keyboard type, and well, you can leave this part there because it's not really for anything for them. But if you choose the number keyboard type number, then you're doing really well because that prevents people writing their age. Just going to choose the numbers. So that is really good for now. Button, what do you want that to say? Once again, click me, anything you like, and label. We're going to take that. We'll leave it there for now because if it's invisible, it's a bit hard to see. Let's go and do some coding. Open up our other window. This time I'm going to choose the right for variety, close this bit down and go View Controller. And over here, I'm going to jump up and see where things are. We can just take that away so we've got a nice bit there. So let's jump in and get this rocking. First part, we're going to take our text box and we're going to bring this over here, pressing Control. Oops. Press Control, drag over here. And what am I going to call it? I'm going to call it text field. Nice and original, but it works. Bit of space after that. So we've got our variable. We've got another variable, which is our label, remember. So take this, drag across with Control down. And what we're going to call it? We're going to call it label. Nice and simple. Another outlet with weak UI. Just to be nice and clean, have one little piece there. Now we need to have our function, which is our button. We're ready to go. Click on the button, hold down Control, drag over here into the main interface, and we're going to call it button clicked. Because my OCD, get rid of that lower uppercase L, put lowercase in. This time it's an action, keep the type any, and we are touching up inside. So we've now got our parentheses, we can open them up and start doing really interesting things with it. So we're not going to do the printing to the log because we don't really care about that for now. We just want to get the age into there. So our command, if let, and we're going to call it age this time because it's an age item. Then we're going to choose text field dot text because if we're letting that happen, then it's all good. Two parentheses, split that, pop them down. What happens next? Well, we say label.text, which is from up there, equals you are space plus age plus quotation marks again. Put a space because we want to have that part afterwards. Years, oops, years old. There we are. That is it. That is everything. It's a little bit shorter than last time because we haven't got the print part, so we're not printing to log. You'll notice that there is an indent here. This is used quite commonly in coding because then you can see that everything here belongs to up there. It was automatic. I didn't even have to do it because Xcode is that good. It doesn't really matter. We could make that indented or whatever. To get it to move along, you just press the tab key. So that is all good. How does this work? Well, we've chosen iPhone 11. We're going to press the simulate button. It's pulling everything up. Build successfully. And here we are in Loaded App. As I said, the label is saying label. I'm going to say, how old am I? I'm going to be, unfortunately, 36 years old. Click me, and we see that bit popping up there. Go back into here, stretch our label right out. Stretch this right out. Bring up our sidebar. Make it center aligned, because that's very important. and delete our standard text. Go back and simulate again. Build successful. Here we go. How old am I? Well, I am 36 years old. Click me. You are 36 years old. And there we are. We have added text into our app. We've added an action button with a click, and we've displayed text as a consequence of what we've shown. We've also made it that you don't show items when there's going to be an error, so there's no text in the box. The one thing we're going to do as the last lesson before pulling everything together and doing some really awesome programming for our first app is adding images in the next video.